Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming back and joining me this morning here on Next on the Tee. We are brought to you today by the great folks over at the French Lick Resort, the PGA Tour Superstore, the Bobby Jones Company, and our good friends over at Frogger Golf. And folks, if you haven't checked out Frogger Golf lately, what a wonderful array of products that they have. I can't brag enough about their accessories, like the amphibian towel that won the best new product at the PGA Merchandise Show back in 2009, and their catch latch technology, really great stuff. Easily and securely attaches and releases, your amphibian towel, your golf towel, and your Brush Pro club cleaner. So any club cleaner that you got, but particularly their great one, the Brush Pro, it really easily attaches to your golf bag. And this being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, they have a wonderful pink version of their accessories, and a portion of the sales go to help support breast cancer. So check it all out online at froggergolf.com. And let me say how much I love the new Bobby Jones fall apparel, folks. Please go to bobbyjones.com and take a look at all their great new arrivals. Plus, while you're there, you get to watch playing lessons from Bobby Jones himself. Many of those lessons, folks, still hold true to today. And their golf shirts and their sweaters are so soft and comfortable. They're going to keep you warm and looking great and feeling great, whether you're in the office or out on the golf course. So go to bobbyjones.com to check it out. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and over the last few weeks, we've been celebrating the life of Arnold Palmer, hearing great stories from people like Peter Kessler and Donnie Hammond, Bob Friend Jr., and Mr. Ben Wright last week. So this morning, we're going to do some more of that with my two guests. We've got Dennis Cohn and Eric Johnson here with me this morning. Dennis is, back. He joined me earlier this year. You'll remember him. He's the founder of the Professional Caddies Association and a member of the Caddie Hall of Fame. They're doing such great things over with the Caddie Association. He's got some updates for us, which I'm really looking forward to talking with and hearing about with Dennis. Plus, we'll hear some memories of him with Mr. Palmer as well. So Dennis is going to be along here in just a few minutes with me. Following him, we'll get a return visit from top 100 instructor Eric Johnson. And Eric's one of my favorites of all time. And, Eric is, was the director for many years, director of golf for so many years over at Oakmont Country Club before moving over to Nemacolin Woodlands Resort earlier this year. So we'll talk about, Eric, about, his memories of Mr. Palmer. We'll also talk about, the Ryder Cup, plus get a few of his great tips. Are going to go out there and help us shave a couple of strokes off of our scores. Eric's going to join me a little bit later in this half hour. So we're going to hear a lot of great stories. We're going to have a lot of fun this morning. I am so glad that you're here to take the journey with me over the next hour. And like I mentioned a moment ago, we are sponsored by the French Lick Resort, which is an absolutely spectacular place. If you haven't seen it, go to FrenchLick.com to check it out for yourself. They've got a Pete Dye and a Donald Ross design course. Those were ranked number 1 and number 2 in the state of Indiana by Golf Week. It was the site of last year's Senior PGA Championship, and a few weeks back they hosted the LPGA Legends Championship as well. So please, again, go to FrenchLick.com to see for yourself how great it is and to book your stay. And every week here on Next on the Tee, I like to kick off the show by saluting the brave men and women that are serving in every branch of our military who are tuning in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We want to thank all of you for your daily sacrifices that you and your families are making to protect our freedoms and our liberties wherever you're stationed. We also want to thank our veterans out there for all that you and your families have done for us over the years. It is through your strength and your efforts that our way of life continues to be possible. Folks, if you happen to see a member of the military when you're out and about, wherever you might be, in the airport, at a restaurant, at the grocery store, wherever, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our true heroes. Our sincere thanks as well to Sean Cruz and all the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It is such an honor that you have Next on the Tee as part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. And I also want to continue to remind our veterans out there, be sure to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org. It's a site with news and articles and a wealth of information specifically geared towards our veterans out there. I'm sure you can find it both interesting to you and beneficial. Again, globalvoiceforveterans.org. All right, now back with me on the French Lick Resort guest line is Dennis Cohn. And like I said, Dennis is the founder and the CEO of the Professional Caddies Association. He also served as the president of the Junior Golf Association down in Central Florida. He was inducted into the Caddie Hall of Fame back in 2011. He's a wonderful person, a lot of great spirit, doing a lot of really great stuff, and I'm so excited that he is back again with me this morning on Next on the Tee. Good morning, Dennis. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Chris, thank you, and thank all the listeners out there. And what a fantastic show you have. You kind of just energize me every time I hear from you, and thank you very much, because, sometimes the caddy work does not get a lot of attention.
Right. And Dennis, I want to start off our time this morning really getting your memories. You posted some wonderful pictures of you and Mr. Palmer on my Facebook page, and I wanted to get your memories, your thoughts of your time getting to spend some time with the King.
Well, I first met Mr. Palmer back when I started at took over the Junior Golf Association back in the 90s, and I met Mr. Palmer way back then, and actually had a meeting with him in his office with one of our board members. And I remember going in his office, and I remember that they said it'd be for about 15 minutes. And I remember going in the office and telling him about what we're trying to do and trying to get kids to play golf and get them on the golf course, which we're still doing that and trying to do it, but it's getting revitalized. And so I remember him sitting there, and we're going over all that. And then I remember one time somebody said, if you really want to get the conversation further, you need to ask somebody how they got to where they are today. And I asked that question, and Mr. Palmer sat back. I remember he put his feet up on the corner of his desk and started telling us all about his early days and the tractor and everything. And he did a little caddying for the ladies only, he said, and we had a great time. And then we kept in touch over the years, and I'd always, of course, reach out to him and ask him for some support from some of the Hall of Famers, or we had a meeting going on or something to get a letter to honor some of the people that we were honoring. And he was always gracious, working with Doc, his assistant for many years. He was always just gracious about doing that. And then I met him again several occasions, but most one that sticks out is at the 50th anniversary of the Golf Writers Association. I'm a member of up in Myrtle Beach, and he came to our meeting up there and had a conversation in the hallway with him. He did tell me, Dennis, do the right things in this game and continue to do it. I do remember that. Now, the second part was I kind of ad-libbed it a little bit because he has told people, make sure you take your hat off in the clubhouse. So I had a chance to hear him speak to all of us and realize that he was just a really humble man that really, truly cared about the game of golf. And I remember him saying one time that stuck with me for a long time, if you take the fun out of the game, then he doesn't want to play it anymore. So a lot of people go out and struggle with their game, and it's not fun, and you throw the clubs and everything else. And I hope the kids that are listening or the parents can let their kids know it is a game. It is a game. Some people do it for a profession, but, it is a game, and you need to enjoy it as a game and keep the fun in it.
And Dennis, you talk about kids. Talk about the Arnold Palmer Hospital and the Caddie for Kids program that you're a part of.
Well, I'll talk about the book later and tell you another story. But we started that program as a test, working with John Rigger, at the time was president of North Florida PGA over at the Winter Park Country Club there, and actually years ago they had caddies there, and the idea was that to get kids on the golf course. If you want kids to play golf, the first thing you got to do is get them to the golf course. And if you can pay them to go there or give them an incentive to show up, they'll probably show up. So we started with the Arnold Palmer Hospital, a program called Caddie for Kids, and we ran a pilot program, which was very successful. And we're looking to get some support and sponsors to take it nationwide now. Basically, kids in Florida have to get the bright scholars and stuff have to do so many community service hours. So the idea was that you could caddy for free. I mean, I would love to, as a legacy, to be able to say that we provided caddies at public golf courses for free. That'd be a wonderful thing for the game, and for 90% of the Americans never even had a caddy. So
right.
The idea was that the kids would come out and they would caddy for free, and then you would make a donation of $10, which would go half to the Arnold Palmer Hospital and half to the PCA Caddy Foundation. And so we did that. It was very successful. But the most interesting thing, Chris, was on our exit surveys, we talked to the kids. Now, we had a school one time, the Boy Scouts another time, so we kind of split it up with different service groups, that over 50% of the kids that came out to do this had never even been on a golf course. And so in our exit survey, we asked them what they thought about this, and majority of them, over 50% again, said it looked like a pretty cool game. They may like to learn how to play it. So we saw something happening there, and the majority of the kids that came out were girls. So thanks to LPGA, needs to take a look at this with us, and then I think it's an opportunity for getting the girls back in the game, because there's a lot of growth in female and girls in the game, and we certainly need them and welcome them out there. So that's the program, and we can if we did it in another city, Arnold Palmer Hospital said that they would step aside as far as the donor, but I don't think I'd want to step aside Mr. Palmer's great organization over there. So I think we would always somehow see that the Arnold Palmer Hospital benefited from this program.
That's great stuff, Dennis. And you teased on my Facebook page as well that you've got some really good inside the ropes information to share. So please give us what's the latest things going on with you and the Caddies Association.
Well, we'll be making an announcement the first of next year. There's been a movement to bring back caddies in the industry, and that's not just from me, but it's from the industry itself, and even the golf gods, the PGA of America, PGA Tour, and all the great organizations out there. And so we're working on putting together an information site that will basically give all the people interested in becoming a caddy or even learning golf through the eyes of a caddy. And so I would like to invite your fans to send an email to you or to me and let us know what they would like to see and what information they would like to have about how caddies help you play around the golf, help you enjoy the golf game better, how it speeds up the play, how it gives certainly kids an opportunity to have a little job and income, be around nice people and fix the greens and all the things, and it makes happier members. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that comes out of that. I was on the original board with Steve Monum when we founded the First Tee, and those great different programs that around the country, they benefit kids with life and social skills. But the one thing that's lacking that people don't talk about is the business skills that come from being a caddy. I mean, you have to brush your hair, brush your teeth. You got to learn how to talk to people and be nice, because you're trying to get a tip at the end of the day, And I think that a lot of people work in the service industry, and they understand that. And it's all about attitude. And so that can be carried over into the caddy or the kid's life at school and with the teachers and fellow classmates, and learn how to get along with people. So I think you've heard it all the time, so many times. Oh, I grew up as a caddy, and what a great thing that was. And
right.
Thomas Friedman, famous writer, went in the Caddie Hall of Fame this year, and he caddied for Chichi Rodriguez when he was 13 years old to the U.S. Open, and not many people know that. And you can go online and look at what he said about foundation for his whole life was formed from being a caddy as a youth.
And to that end, as you just mentioned there, Dennis, so many of the great players, right, of all time started out, as caddies and caddying as young boys, and I know in the not too distant past, and for the Caddie Hall of Fame, I mean, you were inducted in there in 2011. I know Mr. Nicholas and Tom Watson have been in there. Tom Dreesen, who's a comedian, is in there. But a lot of those guys started off as a lot of to the other point, some of the other great Hall of Fame players started off as caddies, and I think that's something, to your point, that has been lost in the game, and people aren't aware of that. These are this is how guys got to spend time honing their games, learning the game of golf, learning the rules, learning the discipline that you need. I think those are some stories that I think need to get back out there and publicized more.
Well, that's what we're doing, and I mean, Hogan and Nelson, they were grew up as caddy, and they kept battling back and forth, winning the caddy tournaments. I mean, what two great players is that? And then the one thing about Mr. Nicholas, and it's on YouTube, when he got inducted, I never heard him say this. In fact, I was talking to somebody else last night about this. He says, if it wasn't for caddying for my dad, I'd never taken up the game. And that's quite a statement there from Mr. Nicholas, and I'm glad he's got that out there, because people don't realize, I mean, you don't have to be a caddy and get paid and and be on the tour and everything else. But you could just go out and spend as a mentor, to just go out with somebody. If you want to learn the game of golf, go ask somebody if I can go out and carry your bag, or just walk beside you and fix the greens for you. And can I just be out there that day with your uncle, your brother, your cousin? And I think they should encourage the kids to go along. I'm sure the golf course wouldn't mind if you brought your grandson out there to be your caddy, because you're going to speed up the game and get more players on there, so the owner's going to be happier because he's going to make a few more dollars with the extra players, and you're going to fix the greens. And so it's a win for everybody if everybody just gets behind. The biggest problem is a lot of the people's concerns with all the legal stuff, and I don't want to get into all that because that's a whole other conversation. But hopefully that the IRS and a lot of the people looking at the youth and their employment statuses, that they'll realize that this is a path forward for citizenship and great people in America, and they need to keep that door open.
Dennis, one of the other programs that you guys have, and I think we need to continue to spread the word about this as well, is the Lifesaver Golf Program. Remind our listeners what that's about.
Well, that's part of what ties in with training when we do an education program with our Caddy for Kids program and the Eagle Guide 4K. Lifesaver Golf, I've partnered with Danielle, who's an international trainer of AED CPR, and years ago, one of our caddies in the PCA actually died at the tournament at the PGA Championship in Valhalla, and they brought him back to life with a defibrillator. And then after that, everybody was getting defibrillators, getting them on the golf course, getting them into golf cars and things like that. Well, that was 15, 20 years ago, and since then, some other people have died on the golf course. The golf course is one of the top places that people die from a heart attack because it's just so hard to get to somebody when they're in the back nine somewhere and they're not close to the clubhouse. So I think it's a push that we're doing. We're trying to get the golf courses to have their people AED, CEPR trained, their volunteers, their staff, everybody, and then we're hoping that the insurance company will reduce their insurance policy a little bit for them to do that. So if here a person that has heart problems, you got a choice of playing at this golf course where anybody on that golf course can save your life if they need to with CPR, and then or a golf course that doesn't have any equipment or nobody's trained. So I think that it's really good to keep golf as if it's a safe place to play around. And if we can continue to monitor that, as we got a lot of baby boomers that are getting older like me, and the ticker is slowing down, and I think we got to make sure that it is a safe place to play around.
And Dennis, one of the other things, and you alluded to this a moment ago, the benefits, of the game of golf, and I've talked to Steve Mona about this on a couple of different occasions, but it's really the opportunity just, to be outside. Part of what I think we lose, because, as you mentioned a moment ago, golf's a hard game, right? It's, and if you're not out there enjoying it, and I think there's a great movement now getting to, play your own tee, play your right tee, right? Make the game enjoyable for yourself, right? So that, you're not frustrated, you're not throwing your golf clubs, you're not, shooting 120, move forward, right? And that sort of thing.
Right.
But on top of enjoying the game more and playing the right length golf course for your game, and everyone needing to be okay with that and checking your ego and play the right so you can have more fun. But it's being outside. It's enjoying the scenery, the environment, the fresh air, all of those sorts of things from a health benefit perspective, as you talk about people unfortunately having some issues, with heart attacks but whatnot. But going out and walking a golf course, having a caddy, enjoying the environment, playing the right tees, and that sort of thing, I think is a wonderful movement all in to make the game more enjoyable and better for us.
No question about it. I mean, being outside is. I mean, remember, I don't know if you remember the old days. We used to have the JFK. We used to do push-ups in junior high school and stuff like that. Kids don't have that chance to get the exercise that they used to. And it is no question about it. It's a beautiful 5-hour walk in the park, and we only play golf. You think about it, in a 4-hour round or 5-hour round of golf, you're only playing golf maybe 20 minutes. I mean, actually hitting the golf ball, and so the rest of the time you're out there, and you should enjoy the walk. And that's one thing about walking. Even if with a 4Caddy, the 4Caddy can still drive the golf car, but not lose the revenue for the pro. But you could walk down the fairway. Because when you're walking down the fairway, you walk to your ball. you know the yardage because you've already paced it off. When you get to your ball, you're ready to hit. With you and I riding on a golf cart, we drive over to your ball and we jump out and say, okay, how far away are we? What we got? You know, I mean, we don't even know what we're talking, but it slows the game down. And so when you're walking to your ball, when you walk up, and somebody asked me one time, Chris, what is lost by having the golf carts versus a caddy? The visualization of the game. What I mean is when you're walking down there, walking to your ball, you're visualizing that shot. You look at all the players. First thing they do is stand behind their ball, and they visualize their ball down there at 280 yards in the middle of the fairway. And then when you walk up your ball, you actually your brain gets geared into, they see that bowling alley right there.
Right. No, that's an excellent point, Dennis.
Yeah, it's good,
good
stuff.
Dennis, as I was sort of looking through the other list of inductees into the Caddie Hall of Fame last year, the Murray brothers, Bill Murray and his brothers, were inducted into the Caddie Hall of Fame. Talk about why.
What a great story. In fact, I was with Donnie Hammond up at he played in the tournament they had up at the World Golf Village, and I was sitting at the lounge there, and the gentleman next to him, and we were talking about the Caddie Hall of Fame. This is in year 2000, and this gentleman says, "Well, I'd like to nominate my family to the Hall of Fame." I said, "Well, who's your family?" He said, "I'm Brian Doyle Murray. I wrote Caddyshack." I said, "Oh, okay." So the story is that these brothers from Chicago all grew up as caddy in Chicago, and one of them went on to get a scholarship at the Western Golf Association. So it's really Ed Murray, and he turned out in the financial business. So it's a great, great story. Bill Murray, the whole family went in because they are really what it's all about. You look at these gentlemen, and they're all successful in their own ways, and they started off as caddies, and they really look at on the internet, and you can see what they said, why, and some of it's funny, but it's why it helped them be the person they are. So that's the reason that I believe that the final vote was made for them, because it shows how a family that plays together, works together, lives together, can be successful.
And Dennis, you wrote a book. It's called "Think Like a Caddie, Play Like a Pro." Mr. Palmer did the foreword, in that book. Talk about what's inside that book and how it can improve our games.
Actually, I'm going to offer to your listeners a chance to give one of those away, and I'll sign it and mail it to them if they can let you know, the first one to tell how many majors that Tom Watson won with Bruce Edwards on his bag. And Bruce was on his bag for almost 30 years, so they can figure that out. But the interesting story there was I was finishing the book, working on it with some golf writers, and I wanted to get Mr. Palmer to do the forward, and I called Doc up, his assistant, and I said, Mr. Palmer, can you talk to Mr. Palmer about doing this for us? And Doc said, basically, Mr. Palmer wants 30 days to answer things, and I said, okay, I understand that. Well, I really need it in 2 weeks, and so I went to Mr. Crenshaw.
Hey, there we go. We lost you there for a few seconds,
yeah.
Dennis.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, are we still on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I was talking. Where did I leave off?
You gone to Mr. Crenshaw.
And then we got the letter back, and then Mr. Palmer's. I got a call from Doc. It said, Mr. Palmer, he called in, and he said he likes what you guys are doing, help Dennis and help those damn caddies. And then I got a letter from Mr. Crenshaw a few days later. He wanted to help, so Mr. Palmer did the prefix, and Mr. Crenshaw did the forward, and Mr. Friend did the prefix. So we're really honored about that book. So it's about your inner caddy when you're out there by yourself, Chris, and you hear that little voice that says, lay up, don't go through that miracle hole. That's your inner caddy talking to you. It's really a voice from God, but it's basically telling you to play smart. And that's what the book's all about. It's how to think your way around the course, not golf swings and chipping. It's how to manage yourself around the course. So happy with
Dennis,
it. Great book.
Before we let you go, Dennis, remind our listeners, how they can find out more information about the greatest caddies of all time, and the Professional Caddies Association and the great work you're doing. And then, as you talked about at the beginning, once we get to the point, into next year about bringing caddies back, into the game of golf? How can they stay abreast of all of that sort of thing and see about, how you're progressing with that?
Well, you can Google in Dennis Cone Professional Caddy Association or Dennis Cone Golf. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff out there to find us. But we will be announcing to you first in the end of December about this exciting news. And I appreciate everybody, sending in their comments to you or to PCA on what they would like to hear from the caddy organizations or how the information's available to grow the game one caddy at a time. But PCAworldwide.com is our website, and then that's one of them. And they can get to us by there and get to the foundation. And the Hall of Fame is also the Western Golf Association Chicago now is administrating the Hall of Fame for us. So great organization, over 100 years old, and just do wonderful work with sending kids to college. And we're working very hard on getting scholarship dollars funded to them next year also.
It's all really great stuff, Dennis. I can't thank you enough for all the great things you're doing for the game of golf. I look forward to the end of December, have you back on, and we'll get the updates and see where things stand. And it's all a wonderful thing. And caddies are a very important part of the game. They have been throughout history. It would be such a great thing for the game and for young people, both boys and girls, to get the opportunity to get out and caddy and get more, get the experiences that you talked about, the life experiences, and then, also, learning more about the game of golf, and hopefully that can help us continue to grow the game of golf with the next generation of kids and players. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, but it's going to happen, and bringing back the caddies is the missing piece of the caddy puzzle, and the industry is starting to finally realize it. And thank you, industry.
Absolutely. Dennis, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to come back on the show. Look forward to the end of December having you back and getting the updates from you. In between now and then, Dennis, all the best.
I love your show. Thank you so much for what you do. God bless everybody.
Thank you very much. Take care, Dennis.
Bye.
That is Dennis Cone. Again, check him out online. Great stuff. PCAworldwide.com and, the Professional Caddies Association and the Caddies Hall of Fame. All great stuff. And, boy, if they can get caddies back into the game, what a wonderful thing that's going to be for the game just as a whole. All right, we're going to get to my next guest, Eric Johnson, and we are going to do that on the other side of this station identification.
You're listening to Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, heard around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with me and making his 7th appearance on the French Lick Resort guest line is Eric Johnson. Eric is the Director of Instruction at Nemacolin Woodlands Resort. Prior to moving over there, earlier this year, Eric was the Director of Instruction at Oakmont Country Club for several years. Golf Magazine has named him a top 100 teacher every year since 2011. He was recognized by Golf Digest as a top 40 under 40 teacher. He is a 3-time Tri-State PGA Teacher of the Year. He is also a 2-time Horton Smith Award winner for his contributions to education. He's on the advisory staff for TaylorMade Adidas Golf. He's played on the Canadian Tour, the Sunshine Tour, the Golden Bear Tour, and you all know from the many times Eric has been a part of the show, he's one of my favorites of all time, would be in my dream by some as well, and I am honored that he is back on the show with me again this morning here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Eric, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing great. How are you, buddy? I appreciate your really kind introduction there. I've said this, you're the most prepared host I've ever heard of, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. So, Eric, like I mentioned in your intro, you moved over from Oakmont to Nemacolin Woodlands Resort earlier this year. An amazing place. I checked it out online. What a spectacular resort that it is. For our listeners who aren't familiar with it, can you give us a quick overview of what they could expect to see there?
Yeah, it is it's an absolute outdoor fantasy land up here. It is. We've got 2 Pete Dye designed golf courses, Mystic Rock and the new one we're just finishing right now, and we'll be done in a couple days here, and we'll be playing it next July. July 1 is going to open. It's called Shepherd's Rock, and Nemacolin is a huge resort on 2,000 acres. It's owned by the Hardy family of 84 Lumber. Mr. Hardy is a tremendous man, 93-year-old gentleman, and we see him on property here every day. I see him 20 times a day driving around, and checking out the property and checking out the hotels and the resorts and Falling Rock and the golf courses. And, he's like all successful, great men who just, can't stop, and we see him every day. And it's so much fun to talk to him. And now his daughter, Maggie Hardy, has taken over the business and also runs 84 Lumber. And, just an incredible, incredible family. I'm just delighted to be here. I'm blessed with the opportunity to be here.
And Eric, we've been doing a month-long celebration of the life of Arnold Palmer and, all the years that you were the director of instruction over there at Oakmont. I'm guessing you had several opportunities to spend some time with Mr. Palmer. I wonder if you could share a couple of your favorite stories.
Yeah, well, the king, it's with a heavy heart that we talk about it, but, and then in the same breath, you can say, I don't know of any human being in the world that had a greater life, and touched more people. So maybe it's a celebration, but the first time I saw Mr. Palmer was I was 6 years old, 1976 at Titusville, Pennsylvania, at Cross Creek Resort. They had, true story, they had Mr. Palmer and they had Curtis Strange and then one of our tri-state professionals up in Chuck Scally Sr., one of the great, players in our section. They played an exhibition, and I don't know if the bank sponsored it or something, but we got to meet and walk around with Mr. Palmer. And, I'm a 6-year-old little midget running around, and it was hilarious. And my mom's a good-looking woman, and AP kind of said, hey, wow, they've got some really good-looking country girls out here. And, and I think my dad puffed up like, hey, Mr. Palmer thinks my wife is hot. And it was hilarious. And so that's it's a story that goes back a long ways in our family. But, and then I started working at Oakmont in 1994 during the U.S. Open. I was one of my last internships. And, so Arnold was, waiting for Jack. And, actually Bob Ford was the last person to own the merchandising rights, last professional to own the merchandising rights for the U.S. Open, the host professional. And so we had sold $6 million worth of stuff that week. So obviously preparing for that was incredible. I mean, to warehouse it, to get all the product in, to get all the, the tents, the merchandise tents, the way we wanted them, and air condition them. And, we're down there driving a forklift and moving boxes all day. And I look terrible. I've got shorts and a T-shirt, and I'm dirty as, you can, be. And so, we're walking by down to the range, past the range, and there's Mr. Palmer, the only one hitting balls. And, so here I am in shorts and a dirty T-shirt and, warehouse gloves. And, I look terrible. And I'll never forget it. Jimmy Ford and I were standing there, and we stopped to watch him hit some balls. And he turns around, and he looked at us, and he goes, hey, how you doing, man? And we're like, great, Mr. Palmer, how are you? And he goes, I'm great. I'm waiting for Jack, he's running late. And, here I am talking to my hero. And I look like a total bum. and he comes over and he shakes our hand. And if anyone knows, you hear the stories about Mr. Palmer all the time, but he had a magnetic handshake. I don't know what it was. He had these big hands and big paws, and he gives you this boom, and he hits your hand, and you shakes your hand, and you're like, oh my, I've never had anybody shake my hand and feel like there was some energy there. And he said, how you guys doing? And so now we're looking at each other like, what? And why is he talking to us? I don't even know why he's talking with us. And he said, we're waiting for Jack. And he said, what are you guys doing? And we told him what we were doing. He said, well, I know how hard work it is to, prepare for an event. And, I thank you for it. And, everything looks great. And we said, well, listen, Mr. Palmer, we don't want to take any more of your time, sir. Just, wanted to say hi. And he goes, well, all right, man. And he slaps us on the back, and off he went hitting balls. And it's just the kind of guy he was. And, I got a chance to meet, George W. Bush, and had a very similar experience where, you shake his hand and, you're just in the presence of greatness. And, W, and, and I wish people could see that side of him. And, you shook his hand, and, one of his caddies, was one of our caddies was a terrible, terrible stutterer. And, so he goes to shake W's hand. and he is struggling. He's, he just can't get it out. He can't say, "Good morning, how are you, Mr. President?" And so W grabs him, and he has him by the hand, and he knows immediately what's happening. And all of us were like, "Oh, my God, how's he going to handle this?" And he grabs him by the shirt and pulls him in closer and was basically like, "I will be with you as long as this takes." And it was one of the kindest, most incredible moments I've ever seen. It almost chokes you up because, and Eric finally went, "How are you, Mr. President?" And he's, "Great, I'm great. And I want a picture with you right now." And he grabbed him, took this big picture, and those are the things that people like Arnold and W, they're just great. They were great human beings. And he knew immediately what was happening, where most of us would have tried to finish his sentence or say, "Hey, what's going on here?" He hung with him. But, boy, I'll tell you, I sorry to get off on, W there for a minute. But, AP was such a special guy. And to be in the Kingdom magazine and to see him come in and one of the highlights of my golfing career was playing in the Palmer Cup matches. And it's the tri-state, the best tri-state PGA professionals take on the best amateurs in the West Penn region, and we did it at LaTrobe, and he played in the afternoon matches. You go out in a 4-ball, going out and play a best ball with Arnold Palmer, and you go, I can't believe this is happening. And I was right behind him in the group behind him. I didn't get to play with him, but he's playing in the group in front of us, and then had a big cocktail hour and dinner, and he's sitting there belting back Kettle Ones and telling stories. And I'll never forget sitting at the round table after the matches, and he's sitting there, and we're all in coat and tie and looking good, and he's there having a Kettle One, and he's telling a story about Ben Hogan, about how Hogan really didn't like him, and always called him fella. Wouldn't call him Arnie or Arnold. He'd call him fella. "Hey, fella, how you doing?" And they had this one practice round, and they wanted to have a match with Arnold. And Hogan wanted a match, and Arnold's like, "Listen, I won the last 2 tournaments, and I'm tired. I'm not playing." They're like, "No, you're gonna play." And Hogan's asking you to play at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. Fine, all right. So he gets out there, and they play this match, and Arnold was telling the story. He's like, "I'm hitting it everywhere. I'm hooking it everywhere." And he's right down the middle every hole, and I'm all over the place. And so he's like, finally, my partner kept us in the match, and I birdied the last 3 holes, and we beat Hogan. And so we go in, wash up, go sit at the lunch table, and he said, Hogan walked in. Ben walked in right past him, sat at the other table with his back toward him, and wouldn't sit with him, because he said, "No one that hits it as sideways as you should ever beat me." And he wouldn't even sit with him at the table. And you go, "Oh my God, dude, like, is this?" And here's your idol of all times, telling the story about playing against Hogan. And just to sit there with him, and I'll never forget. He finishes a drink, and he's like, "Patsy!" yelling to the waitress, and he's like, "Where?" And she snuck right in behind him and placed the vodka right in front of him. And he turned to her, he goes, "Patsy, you've always taken great care of me. Thank you, honey." And it was like, he's the man. You can't make it up. He was the man.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Eric.
Yeah.
And you talked about, being there in 1994, which, was his last U.S. Open there at Oakmont. And really, Eric, was a surreal day, right, in our country, June 17, 1994, because it was his final round of, playing in a U.S. Open. And simultaneously we had, the O.J. Simpson police chase going on. And do you know, did he ever talk about, after all of that happened, right? Because it was an emotional day. If you haven't seen it, please go, you can find it on YouTube. But an emotional day for him to end his U.S. Open career right there, outside of Pittsburgh at Oakmont. And then, simultaneously, I think, people around the country are torn between watching his final round on TV, but also watching this O.J. Simpson surreal thing going on as well. Did he ever talk about that?
He never really talked to us about that, but it's true. Here we've got the United States Open Championship, the king of golf saying goodbye in his backyard, and we've got to see, Orenthal James driving around in the white Bronco, and so it was, he really never said much to us about it, but, And he never would, because he was just that kind of guy. He was selfless. He did everything for everybody else. And I don't know that we'll ever see another true great ambassador to the game the way he was. I mean, he loved to play. I mean, who would have thought that Arnold Palmer would play with some tri-state PGA professionals, that he always called us his fellow tri-state PGA professionals, and playing an afternoon match against some amateurs? I mean, he just loved the game so much, and he was so selfless. He really wouldn't do things like that. I mean, he was just I miss him every day, and to see the life and so many people that he has affected, and the career. There hasn't been one thing that's been said about him that's been overinflated. He was that great of a human being, and the effect that he had on Western Pennsylvania. I mean, my goodness gracious, everywhere you go in some clubhouse, there's something signed by Arnold Palmer, and everybody has it in every club. You can't go to a club around here and not see something. And he was the king. He was the king, no doubt about it.
Was. And Eric, I had Peter Kessler, and you talk about finding something in the golf shops around. I had Peter Kessler on the show a few weeks ago, and Peter told a great story about the first time that he went to meet Mr. Palmer up at LaTrobe Country Club before the Golf Channel got kicked off, and Peter was one of the originals there on the Golf Channel, and he was waiting for Mr. Palmer, and outside his office. I think Mr. Palmer was on the phone, and so he's looking around at all the memorabilia that Mr. Palmer had, and immediately struck by there's a green jacket from the Masters there framed on the wall, and it had the scorecards from the final rounds of each of Mr. Palmer's wins. And Peter had noticed that the scorecard there for 1962 had him finishing with scores of 4.46 instead of 3.33. And immediately struck him that that's not the scorecard from 1962. It's from 1961, because he had made double bogey on the last hole to lose to Gary Player. And he pointed out to Mr. Palmer's assistant there at the time that hey, you got the wrong scorecard here. But the person had insisted, no, that's the right one. And when Mr. Palmer emerges from the office, Peter pointed out the error to Mr. Palmer, and he said Mr. Palmer walked over and kind of looked into the glass and stood there for a few moments in silence and turned and looked at him and said, "I still can't believe I lost to that son of a bitch." So that's sort of
yeah, that's how he was. Oh, yeah. He was amazing, and listen, I'm not going to bash on Tiger too much, but he played 8 practice rounds in 2007 and never ever walked into the golf shop, not once to say hello. And every time Mr. Palmer would walk in the golf shop, he would take his hat off. He'd go, "Hey, boys. Hey, men. Arnold Palmer, how are you? I want to thank you for hosting me today." And we're all like, "Yeah, okay, yes, sir." And like, we don't know who you are. And, "Oh, hi, I'm Jack Nicklaus," right? Right, Mr. Palmer. And he goes, "Is Bob in? I really wanted to thank him." And that's the kind of guy he was. I mean, he didn't have to do those things that he did, and he knew it was the people. It was about great people, and it kind of goes in a parallel thing. Mr. Hardy here, I mean, founder of 84 Lumber, and 93-year-old, just a class gentleman, sits me down on my first day, and first day 8:30 in the morning. 93-year-old guy, boom, right in, comes in right on time, and tells me how it's about the people, and that people make a company great, and Arnold knew that, and they have they had a very similar, feelings about human beings, and it was amazing to see Mr. Palmer and how genuinely gracious and wonderful he was. We were playing Seminole one day, and so we're coming off the 9th hole, and I look over, and there's Mr. Palmer sitting on cart number 1, and we're like, "Holy cow, that's Arnold Palmer over there." This was about 2 or 3 years ago, and teeing off is Nick Price, and I've got this shot, and I'm like, if I skull this chip shot or this pitch shot here, I kill Nick Price, and I've got Arnold Palmer over there watching, and I'm like nervous as all get out, and my great friend Mark McGraw stuffs it to like a foot, taps in, makes birdie, I chunk it up there somewhere in 2-putt. and we walk off the green, and John Birmingham, who is a longtime member at Seminole and great player, just got in the Hall of Fame here, and went over and said, "Hey, Arnie, hey, John, how you doing? Good. I want you to meet these guys." And was shaking Arnold Palmer's hand, and my guest, Mark McGraw, our guest, walked off after making birdie on the 9th hole at Seminole and a meeting Arnold Palmer and then Nick Price. He said, "Guys, it's been a great day. I don't even know if I need to play the backside." We're like, "Hey, Mark, we're playing the backside. We got 9 more holes to go, my man." But he goes, "That could be the greatest day of my life. I just made birdie in front of Arnold Palmer, met him, shook hands, said hi with Nick Price." I mean,
wow.
To be able to do those things, you're living a little fantasy there, and really, really special guy. And then Mark went off and told his Mr. Palmer about a picture that his dad had on the wall, and Mark's father was the president of McGraw Hill Publishing, and then his grandfather was the founder of the company. And he said, there's a picture that my dad has in his office, and it says, "To John, best wishes, Arnold Palmer." And there's you took him into a bunker and taught him how to hit a bunker shot. And and he said, "Oh, is that right? How's your dad? Tell him I said hi." And Arnold was so inviting and so warming. He just touched everyone. And like I said, Mark's got his dad has this picture in his office of he and Arnold Palmer, and he said, there was Mr. Palmer. The funny part about that story, there was only one guy walking in there with a club, and that was my dad, not you. Like you were teaching him how to do this, and it's amazing how he affected the world.
Eric, let's switch gears a little bit. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Ryder Cup this year. So, looking back on that event, what are your general thoughts about what you saw at the Ryder Cup?
Well, wow. You got to start with Phil Mickelson, and it almost seems like the more he yaps, the better he gets. I've never seen anybody that can seem to kind of stick his foot in his mouth and then comes out looking like the hero. I mean, it was unbelievable. And there's not many people like that can bring upon some pressure to themselves. And, look at Denny Willett. Denny Willett had some pressure put on him, and he folded like a cheap suit. And, and I just don't think that, unfortunate that, the things were said and by his brother, and I think there was some little hard feelings going on there. I don't think Willett had a great event, and so I'm sure that doesn't sit real well with him. But hey, he's a big boy. He's got to put his pants on and go play. But I just don't think Danny Willett is the kind of guy that would be able to do the stuff that Phil did. I mean, to make 10 birdies in 18 holes in a Ryder Cup with all that pressure and all the self-brought upon pressure that Phil did is just remarkable. I'm finally glad we got a win. I mean, I don't know what they did in this task force, but I don't care. We got a W, and I was delighted about it. And, I really don't care what they did. I could, go on date nights. I don't care what they do, but, it's great to see Americans play and win. And I think, at the end of the day, Europeans are much tougher golfers. I mean, we get, perfect conditions every week and perfect weather, and they don't. And they play in stuff that we wouldn't play in. And they're just tougher players, and they grow up playing match play. And, I've played over there a bunch. I've played a lot of their, we've gone over for that Oakmont versus Lochleman Cup matches, and I'm not kidding. They play for their town, their country, their family name, their clan. I mean, it's a personal thing for them. I mean, it's about the golf, and they no problem being friendly after and during the round, but they are fierce competitors. And I think that we don't seem to see that very often in American players. And I'm convinced they're tougher players. But I think at the end of the day, you look at Rory and the Patrick Reed match, and they were both going haywire, and then when they put their arms around each other and kind of walked off, I hope that we can remember that. And to me, that's what the Ryder Cup and golf's about. Listen, no one wants to lose. These are all rich, wealthy guys, and it means a lot to their ego, and they don't want to lose. But at the end of the day, it was about friendship and great golf and let's put the ball in the air and let's see who wins. And I hope that this whole nonsense about a few fans squawking at the players, and is that stuff going to happen? Yeah, it happens, and let's not kid ourselves. It happens over in Europe too to our guys. So let's not get whining about it too much here. But is there a spot in the game for that? I don't think so. But let's not forget it happens over there too. And you can be mad at American fans, whatever, and European fans can do the same thing. And we'll see. I hope at the end of the day, you respectfully cheer for your guys. You don't, rudely cheer for the opponents. And at the end of the day, we shake hands and be friends after we watch some of the greatest golf. And then I forgot about Sergio. How about Sergio Garcia coming in and making it on top of Phil after Phil had already made it? Sergio's not known as the best putter out there, and he made 9 birdies. That might go down as the single greatest Ryder Cup match in the history of the Ryder Cup. 19 birdies between two guys and ended up a tie. And, maybe it should have been when you think back on it, maybe Phil should have given him a Nicklaus moment and said, hey, pick that up, But you know what? We're in the middle of a Ryder Cup, and we both want to win. So, you know what? I'm just delighted that Sergio made it right on top of him. That was an incredible Ryder Cup. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talked about, the Patrick Reed, Rory McIlroy, singles matchup. But boy, I'm not sure I've ever seen any more, sort of raw emotion, if you will, and a match not only between the two players, but obviously the fans on top of that. But boy, between those two singles matches, I don't know that golf gets any better than that.
I don't know that it does. When you see how and Patrick Reed was like that when he turned and did the little shoosh, to Heinrich Stenson. I mean, are you kidding me? Heinrich Stenson's he looks like a bodybuilder. He would destroy this guy in a fight. And he has the nerve to turn around at him and shoosh him. Holy cow, what just happened there? And then to see what he did to Rory, he's like a Phil in that sense where, he's not afraid of some pressure. And he's not afraid to say, hey, I'm a top 5 player in the world, and he believes it. And
right.
Whether he is or not, we'll see. But that was. Whether you like the kid or not, that was some of the gutsiest performance I've ever seen in my life. I mean, to take on the number 1 player in the world and shush him right back and to step in that arena and win. And I don't care what you say, Rory. Oh, I was tired. Whatever. If you can't be up in that, please. But I don't know. I mean, but Patrick came out on top. And that was, and I think everybody knew how significant. And you say, well, it's 1 point. It's only one. Right. It was 1 point, and it was the most significant point out there because, we needed it, and we sent our best guy at the time out to take on their best guy. And they're going to front load it. Everybody's going to do it now. That's how they do it. It's not best players sit down in the end and let the scrubs play, or not scrubs. Please, what I meant. I hope that wasn't. No one that's in a Ryder Cup is a scrub. You're playing your guys that, maybe aren't playing at their best. My apologies for that. I didn't mean scrub, but you play your guys that aren't playing their best, and you send them out. That's not how they do it anymore. Everybody front loads because they're trying to get the points, and it's an amazing turnaround. That was some gutsy, and I do like the fact, and those two, it'll be interesting to see what happens over history. Over time, what will happen? Will they become, better friends? Will they, they hang out a little more? One of the coolest things we had, Stanley Druckenmiller has a big SWAT party, at Oakmont, and Phil played this year, and Adam Scott and Rory, and some of these big boys playing on a Monday in shorts at Oakmont in front of the Open, and they're all there hanging out and. They sat down on a table. It was Rory and Adam Scott and Phil and John Kasich was there. He was playing. He was sitting at the table, and Dave Pells and all these guys sitting there. And it was incredible to see them all sitting there. And as a fan of golf, you're looking at the greatness. Look at the table that you're looking at. You got a guy who's running for president, just bowed out. You got all these. This is golf, royalty sitting there, and they're all sitting there hanging out, having a glass of wine, watching, and yakking at each other, and they're all friends. But it'd be interesting to see what happens after a Ryder Cup like that, to see if their friendships get stronger, or they grow apart a little bit, or if it's a little chip on their shoulder.
Eric, just a couple more before we let you go, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Jason Day's swing. Like, his friend Tiger Woods, he just lashes at the ball so hard and so fast, and with the type of issues that he's been having with his back, and it seems like it could go at any time without a warning. And anyone who has back problems, you all know that, like I do, that one bad move and all of a sudden now your back is spasmed. If you were his swing coach, or a guy that could give him some advice, do you think he needs to continue to lash at the ball like he does? Because you don't really need to drive the ball 350, 385 to be successful on the tour, and it just seems like he goes at it so hard that it might be doing him more harm than good, actually, for longevity in the game.
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure we know the answer, but I do know this: length is a determiner of people that win. There's not many of the Zach Johnsons that can win out there. Zach Johnson wins because he's tough as nails and he wedges it great and putts it unbelievably. So on a course like St. Andrews, he can win. The golf courses they play are getting longer and longer and longer. And now we know from proximity to the hole that the closer you are to the hole, the closer you're going to hit your approach shot. So from a longevity standpoint, I'm not sure that that's a great thing. But from a winning standpoint, you have to bomb it. The game is totally different. It's when I have people come to me all the time and they say, hey, can my son play in college, or can I play on the tour? And the first thing I do is put them on TrackMan. And if they can't get it at 112 to 120, then I say, you know what, might be a nice amateur career, but he's never going to play full time because the guys are hitting it too far. Now, when you look at Jason Day's swing from a mechanical standpoint, it's magnificent. Now, is some of that coming in because he's swinging so hard? It might be. But again, at the end of the day, if some tour player out there said, listen, I'm going to give you an extra 30 yards, and you're going to bomb it, and for 10 years you're going to have an most unbelievable run you can have. You'll make, $150 million in those 10 years, or you can sit back here and not hit it as far. You can be 30 yards shorter, and you'll have an okay career, and maybe you'll make $10 million or $15 million over the course of your career. I don't know one guy isn't going to put his hand up and say, give me the extra 30 and I'll take the injuries. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, it's about money, and if you can give me a 10-year run and make a pile of money, and then I can, go fishing or do whatever the heck I want after that, there isn't going to be anybody that's not going to do that. There's not many Furyks out there who have had the longevity. And Phil, look at Phil. Talk about that guy. He's been in 11 Ryder Cups and never had to get picked. That's an unbelievable run in the game of golf. And you know what? He's tweaked his swing a little bit, but he never made radical changes like Tiger. And when you look at the destruction and the dismantling of Tiger in his golf swing, I kind of blame some of the golf scientists for that. Some of these guys, and they want to talk about biomechanics and how the body moves and every hub angle and hub path and vertical ground force reactions, all this nonsense. And you go, what are you talking about? It's about hitting the ball hard. It's about seeing a start on line and it's seeing it curve the right way. All this other stuff, that's nice. You sound like little golf scientists. That's nice. You guys keep sticking in the laboratory. But don't mess up the greats. You got less than 0.2 of a second on the downswing to hit the ball. I don't think you need to be thinking a whole bunch of mechanical thoughts. I guarantee you that Jack Nicklaus never thought about mechanical thoughts. All this nonsense we're hearing and some of the way these guys are teaching anymore. They sound like robots. I don't know what they're talking. I know all what they're saying, but I don't know why they're saying it. I don't know if they're just saying it to be smart, but or sound smart, but you're ruining players. I don't think that's smart.
Eric, one more before we let you go, and you're a great teacher of the golf swing and the golf game, and I love your website, ericjohnsongolf.com. Give our listeners one tip that might save them a stroke or two when they go out and tee it up this weekend.
Yeah, when you think about what most people don't do is hit it solid. The number one thing, and I said, if you can overly simplify the game, and you say, listen, what's the most important thing you can do? Hit it solid. Hit it in the center of the face. If you're standing there at TPC Sawgrass and you're on the 17th hole of the Island Green, I'm sure you're not saying, boy, I hope I hit it real straight, because you can roll a grounder right into the water and those balls don't float. You got to hit it solid. So, when I say hit it solid, to me that's working on your footwork, staying a little bit more in the shot. I see a lot of people getting out of sync with the golf club and jumping up. So I have a great drill where I have people put their right big toe to the top of the shoe and hit some balls and feel how the golf club's supposed to swing during the swing. Your arms and your wrists are there to help, swing that golf club in the square of the face. And I see too many people just out of sync with their lower body. I see too much jumping and too much out in front. So keep your right big toe up through impact. Let the golf club feel like it's passing you a little bit. Swing the golf club, and you'll be in great shape.
Eric, remind our listeners how they can find you, whether it's online or over social media as well.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet much, but Eric Johnson Golf and ericjohnsongolf.com, and you can catch me there, and Nemacolin website, nemacolin.com. And before we go, Chris, I appreciate the men and women of this country and the great men and women of this country, and hopefully we can get through some of this political nonsense that's happening out there. But anyone who threatens the United States of America needs to meet one of our men and women, and they need to meet their creator. So shoot straight, stay safe out there, and we thank you for all you guys do for us.
I appreciate you adding that in, Eric. My friend, it's always a privilege and a pleasure to get to spend some time with you. You're one of my all-time favorites in my dream fivesome. If I put one together, you would certainly be in it. I thank you so much for your time this morning. Already looking forward to the opportunity when I get to spend some more time with you next time. But thank you so much for all your time today.
Well, hey, Chris, thank you. You're an unbelievable interviewer. And listen, let's come on up to Nemacolin. You got to see what we have up here. It's an absolute fantasy land, and leaving Oakmont was a very emotional decision, but I made the right move, and I love it here, and I would love to have you up here.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll take you up on that. I promise you that. Eric, take care. All the best to you and your family, my friend.
Yes, sir, Chris. Thanks.
Soon.
God bless.
All right,
thanks.
take care.
Bye-bye.
That is Eric Johnson, again, one of the top 100 instructors out there, and no one does it better than Eric does. Great site, ericjohnsongolf.com, and then follow him on Twitter as well. Very excited always to get the opportunity to spend some time with Eric. As you can tell, a lot of fun every time he's a part of the show. All right, folks, it's time for me to put a bow on this episode, but every week we like to continue to remind you about the great things that our friend Jim Estes, PGA Tour Pro, and the folks over at the Salute Military Golf Association are doing. Let's hear some words from Jim.
The Salute Military Golf Association was created to provide rehabilitative golf experiences to the brave men and women who have been wounded while serving our country. Hi, I'm Jim Estes, PGA Golf Pro and co-founder of the Salute Military Golf Association. With my adaptive golf program, we've successfully helped thousands of soldiers in their recovery, both mentally and physically. The SMGA has been providing family-inclusive golf experiences across the country since 2007. To date, the SMGA has equipped more than 1,000 warriors with properly fitted golf clubs and has extended its clinic series to more than 8 chapter and affiliate locations across the U.S. If you are a wounded veteran interested in participating, or if you'd like to learn more about the Salute Military Golf Association and find a chapter closest to you, visit our website at smga.org. We've seen firsthand how impactful golf can be in aiding one's recovery. The Salute Military Golf Association, empowering wounded veterans one fairway at a time. Visit smga.org. That's smga.org.
Yeah, folks, they're doing some amazing things there at the Salute Military Golf Association. Please, to find out more information and how you can get involved, check out their website, smga.org. All right, everybody, my sincere thanks again to Dennis Cohn and Eric Johnson for making today's show so interesting and fun for me to be a part of. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Please also check out our sister show, Thursday Night Tailgate, with me and my co-host Bob Lazare and our announcer Joe LaGenusa. That show airs live every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can stream it live on Blog Talk Radio as well as on the Armed Forces Radio Network. You can also find that show, just like this one, on great site. We can't thank our good friends over at Podbean enough for what they're doing to promote both shows and recommending it and having it on, one of their top lists. We thank them so very much. This show is also is the top golf show as a podcast available on iHeartRadio as well. Thanks to those folks. You can also find us on Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, iTunes, Player.fm, and SoundCloud as well. On our sister show, Thursday Night Tailgate, every week we bring you 5 legends from around the game of football, around from the NFL, to share their stories and their insights. And our good friend Tony Collins, former Patriots Pro Bowl running back, shares his 5-star picks of the week. So you can find that show, like I said, just like this one, on so many of the great podcasting sites in the Armed Forces Radio Network. Check out our sites online. This show, nextonthet.net and ThursdayNightTailgate.com. You can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free from either of those sites, just like those great podcasting sites as well. So, folks, thank you so much for choosing to listen to this show today. We know you've got 1,000 shows out there that you have the opportunity to listen to and get your content from. We really appreciate the fact that you're making Next on the Tee one of them. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.
You've been listening to Next on the Tee with Chris-Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors, and media members go to tell their stories. Join us the same time every Saturday to hear more stories about the game we love, from the people who love sharing those stories with you. It's all about the great game of golf. It's all about the great game of golf.